morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this call with USMNT's national team head coach, Gregg Berhalter. First of all, we'd like to thank everyone at the Port Authority and American Airlines for helping support our opportunity this morning to have you speak with Gregg. If you'd like to get in a queue to ask a question, you may do so by virtually raising your hand. As you know, last night, the United States qualified for its 11th World Cup, 7 of the last 8 tournaments. This will be the youngest U.S. men's national team to have qualified for the World Cup. Also, Gregg becomes the first USMNT player to also coach the national team to a World Cup. We're going to begin with questions and start with Doug McIntyre from Fox.
Hey, Gregg. Thanks, Michael. Congratulations. Well deserved. I was hoping you could take us through, what you plan to do preparation wise. It's a weird time to have a World Cup. You're not going to have a long training camp, be able to play friendlies. So what do you do in June? What do you do in September? How do you get these guys ready to hit the ground running in Qatar? Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. That's going to be key. The June window where we'll play 4 games is going to be an important part of our preparation. And as is September, where we'll play 2 games, hopefully, or we're trying to get games in Europe in September, but that's not finalized yet. But then looking forward, I think there'll be an opportunity to get domestic-based players together for a training camp before we go to Qatar and meet the rest of the group there. So it's less than ideal preparation in terms of the time we're going to have, but every team's going to be doing the same thing. So we'll be able to deal with it just like everybody else.
Just one point of information as we continue. In the June window, 2 games in the CONCACAF Nations League. That draw will take place on April 4th. Next will be Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thank you, Michael. Hey, Gregg. Personnel-wise, are there any particular parts of the field that you're looking to focus on? Obviously, the players that were available were the ones that were available, but are there any particular areas of the field that you're looking to focus on, or maybe give some guys a chance that you weren't able to bring in before? How's that shaping up?
What I would say is that when we're healthy, we have pretty good depth. I think that left back could be a position where, the reserve hasn't established themselves yet. That hasn't come out. So that's something that we're continuing to look into, and George Bello and Sam Vines, and hoping they continue to develop at their clubs. Other positions, we're pretty well set. Wingers, we're pretty well set. Center backs, we have a number of them when we're healthy. Goalkeeper, same thing. And the last thing would be just number 9, hoping that the number 9 gets good form and continues to push, whether that's Ricardo or Daryl or Giassi or Jordan or Jesus, whoever that may be, or Josh Sargent even. We're hoping that one of our 9s gets into good form by the time the World Cup comes around.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Next will be Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thanks, Michael. Congratulations, Gregg.
Thanks.
I got on a minute or 2 late, so I'm not sure if this has already been asked. A lot of the players carried such a huge psychological burden through this qualifying campaign. Christian the most, I think it's probably fair to say we've all seen it. You've been in that locker room, though, and we haven't. The pandemic has sort of limited our ability to talk to players at great length. What have you seen about carrying that burden, the psychology of it, and whether it's now finally lifted? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. There's a lot of different layers to that question, just off the top of my head. I think the first thing is you talk about, and everyone talked about, what a difficult time qualifying was going to be beforehand. And then when we're going through it, the expectation is that we win every game. And so there's a disconnect, I think, between expectations and reality. And I think that builds pressure on the team a little bit. But then the second thing is, we really felt the public was behind us in this, and it was a great feeling, particularly the home games when the stadiums were, electric and creating an amazing atmosphere. But in the same sense, there was also this feeling that the public was on edge, and they desperately wanted us to make it. We desperately wanted to make the World Cup. And I think overall, it's just a great lesson for everyone that you can't take qualifying for granted. It's about what you do on that day, and it's about staying one game at a time. And I think, going into this last window, it was arguably our most difficult window, right? We have Mexico away, Panama, the fourth team at home, and then Costa Rica away. So our mentality in that window was just take it one game at a time, get the most you can get out of each and every game. And that ended up playing out really well because we set ourselves up in that second game, to make the third game almost inconsequential. And a lot of credit goes to the players, a lot of credit goes to the staff for just having that mindset to take these challenges as they come.
Jonathan, 4 players from 2017 in Trinidad were in San Jose last night. Kellen Acosta, Paul Arriola, Christian Pulisic, and DeAndre Yedlin. Next will be Henry Bushnell from Yahoo.
Hey, Greg, really appreciate you doing this. Congrats on last night and the whole cycle. Kind of following up on Jeff's question from earlier, I guess, how much, as you went through qualifying even earlier, have you thought about the composition of an eventual World Cup roster? And then what are the chances that a player who emerges over the next several months, but maybe hasn't had much experience with the group previously, could be a part of it? And then also, just a kind of an aside, would you support the expansion of World Cup rosters from 23 to 26? I believe that's going to be discussed.
I would definitely support that. I think that's a great call to be able to choose from 26 players for a 23-man roster for the game day. That makes a lot of sense, particularly given we don't know where COVID will be at the time of the World Cup, and given the fact that the World Cup's in the middle of a season where guys can be banged up a little bit. So I think that's a strong idea. In terms of the first question, we're open to anything. Any player that emerges, we're open to looking at them and giving them an opportunity. That's been our stance since day one. And if you're performing at a high level, you'll get an opportunity. And just like if guys haven't been involved in a while, they still have opportunities based on what they're doing. We don't close the door on anyone. It's a great group, a welcoming group. It's a close team, but we also want to be successful and we want to have the best possible roster that we can. So if a player does emerge over these next 8 months, we'd certainly be looking at them.
We'll go to Ryan Talmadge from Goal.com.
Hey, Greg, like everyone said, congratulations. Thanks for doing this. I don't know how you're awake given everything that's been going on, but I was just thinking back to early in the cycle, Tyler was saying how he would talk to his Leipzig teammates just about how difficult and how different it is to play in CONCACAF, and how guys in Europe maybe don't necessarily understand that. And that's obviously something that your guys learned throughout the last 6 months, that these games are different than friendlies against top European teams or Champions League games or Bundesliga games or whatever. And just looking ahead, getting through that experience, now you're going to a World Cup where you're going to be playing at a different type of game. With these guys in the Champions League and playing at that top level, do you think your team is maybe more built towards that type of game than a CONCACAF type of game? And do you think that going through those CONCACAF games has kind of prepared them to suffer through those World Cup type of games?
I certainly think it's helped us understand and deal with challenges and accept them as they come and face them head on. And that's an important quality that you need in a team. When I think about the beginning of qualifying, in particular, Serginho Dest, for example, he's at Barcelona and he's playing with Messi, he's playing with all these great players. And we're going down to El Salvador and we're playing on a sub-maximal pitch and in front of a crazy crowd, and everything's crazy about the game. And what you could see is the guys had a really difficult time processing that type of game and understanding that, the ref lets a lot more go. The game's a lot more physical, a lot more hectic. And we've seen the group grow throughout qualifying. And that's been the most enjoyable thing, to see this young group that is mostly used to European type of football adapt to CONCACAF and still be successful in it. And, when I think about all the challenges of this qualifying cycle, it's been fun, and it certainly helped stretch the group and help them grow.
Next would be Joe Tollison from SiriusXM.
Greg, you talked about the players coming in and only being 4 players who were from 2017. As you go through this cycle, first off, who, if any, struck you kind of as a revelation through this qualification process? And then you've been through it as a player, but what did you learn about yourself and as a coach finally going through a complete qualification process?
I think some of the surprises that emerged from qualifying were, Matt Turner early on did an excellent job. I think he stood out as not having that experience, but stepping in and doing really well. Anthony Robinson is another player that came out of nowhere virtually and did an excellent job all throughout qualifying. I think also Walker Zimmerman is a guy that has gotten a lot of attention. He wasn't in a couple of the squads, and they ended up playing the remainder of the windows and doing a really strong job. So you always have guys that pop out. Luca Della Torre is another example. Yunus Musa. There's a number of examples of guys. And then you take the normal performers like Christian and Weston and Tyler and Miles Robinson and Serginho or whoever, DeAndre and Kellen. The guys did a good job. In terms of what we learned from it as a staff, I think, is just to remain calm. Like when the storm's going on, I think the best thing we can do for the group is remain calm and stick to our process and our plan. And when you do that, it calms the players. There's a lot of nerves involved with qualifying. Every game, there's a lot riding on each game. And it's just about giving the players the confidence with your calmness and your preparation.
Next will be Kyle Bond from Sporting News.
Thank you, Michael. Congratulations, Greg, on qualifying. When you look ahead to the World Cup, as you mentioned, the timeline is a weird one. 8 months away kind of feels like a long way away, and it also feels right around the corner too. At this point, when you look ahead and do a preliminary evaluation of things, what do you believe constitutes success for you guys at the World Cup?
The starting point is definitely getting out of the group, even without having seen the group. And we may get a very difficult group, but that's part of it. But the starting point is getting out of the group. And once you do that, it's tournament time. It's knockout, single elimination. So anything can happen. But what I would say is the starting point is getting out of the group for sure and go from there. Because once you get in that stage, anything can happen.
We'll go to Emily Olsen from USA Today.
Thanks, Michael. Congratulations, Greg. It feels weird to ask this question just after saying congratulations, but this qualifying, this last 7 months has constantly, we've heard, one game at a time, it's the next game. Obviously, you've been evaluating the team the whole time. You talk about the left back situation, the number 9. For you, how does this process switch? How quickly does it switch to trying to figure out that 23 to 26 roster? And what does the next 8 months look like for you, taking this pool that we've talked about being so big and trying to fit it into the most successful 23 to 26 players?
It will be difficult. It will be difficult because there's going to be the culmination of the European season in June, and then it starts up again in September, and we'll be really looking for form. We know we have a deep pool, and then it will be about taking the guys that are in the best form if they're on the margins. And so we're going to have to be patient with that. MLS season will be wrapping up. European season will be starting up, and it's just continuing to monitor the players. I think that will be probably the toughest thing we'll have to do is tell a guy that's been with the program for a while that he's not going to be selected for the World Cup. And, those conversations are never easy, but, we'll try to pick the best roster possible to do well in the World Cup.
Next will be Claudio Villalobos.
Thank you, Michael. Well, Greg, just to be different, I'm not going to say muy bien. Congratulations. But My question goes this way. I mean, you've taught us about all through the process how many lessons the team has learned from every single game. From a point of view of later on thinking about the whole process, which one would be the game that you would remember as the one that you learned the most positive stuff from the team, and which one would be the other one, the other way, where the team seems to be for you not doing the right stuff at the moment that you learn from? And then the second one would be being a player that was in the World Cup and knowing the difficulties of actually going through the first round only. What in your mind would be the stuff that you think about the team has to accomplish before even getting into the World Cup to try to go farther in the World Cup, which is so difficult?
Well, your focus becomes much more narrow, and it's about every single point, every single game, every single goal you give up or you score. That's what the World Cup is about. The goal starts off for every team is just to get out of the group. And, you know, I didn't want to paint it as we have low expectations, because that's not the case at all. But you see time and time again, top teams not getting out of their group. And so it has to be a priority for any team to get out of your group and go from there. See who you play next, prepare to beat that team. And that's where it becomes fun. And I think the group will be ready for it. I know the group will be ready for that challenge. In terms of qualifying, I think the low point for us as a staff would probably be the Panama game away from home. I think it was a performance where we didn't do well enough to win the game. And I think that was disappointing from that side. Most of the other games, we did enough to try to win the game, and if we didn't, sometimes you can live with it. And then the high points, there's a lot of high points. You know, I think that just seeing the group, how they responded to losses and then came back the next game, or seeing how they dealt with giving up a goal sometimes, or a good opponent. And, you know, I think anytime you see the group respond to challenges was positive. And lastly, I'd say just really thankful for our home fans and the atmospheres that we created in these stadiums. You know, we should be really proud as Americans to have that type of atmosphere in our soccer stadiums.
Next will be Juan Carlos Maigua.
Hi, Coach. Thank you for the time and congratulations on the qualification.
Thanks.
I would like to ask, I know that every nation that is going to qualify to the tournament is very competitive. But if you had the chance to pick the members in your group, which nations would you like to be sharing the group with if you had a chance to pick? And also, given the weather conditions that are going to be presented in the tournament, how are you going to be managing to train or prepare the group ahead of time?
Right. So, you know, from my understanding, the weather will be moderate to warm. It's not going to be extremely warm. So that will be helpful to all teams. In terms of who we'd like to see in our group, you know, I'm not even going to go down that path. You know, we'll take whoever we get. It's a random draw, so we'll deal with whatever we're drawn with.
Next will be Nicholas Murray.
Thank you, Michael. Congratulations, Greg.
Thanks.
In the big picture, this is the first four-year cycle in which we've seen the full effect of academy investment, especially in players who graduated from academies to begin their professional careers in the second and third tiers before moving up. What does it mean to have players like Tyler Adams, Brendan Aronson, and Ricardo Pepi get those opportunities to compete in professional leagues as 16-year-olds? And what does it mean for the future when those opportunities for young players are growing at clubs at all levels around the country?
You know, I think that's one of the reasons why we're where we are, is because of the academy structure and because of the investment by Major League Soccer and the owners in their academies. When you're able to, it's like anything, when you're able to systematically develop a player and show him the pathway and let him go through all these steps and gradually rise through these steps as he's doing better, it helps. It helps the player's confidence, but it also helps to continually challenge the player. So Tyler Adams is a great example. We went from the academy to Red Bull 2 to Red Bull's first team to Red Bull Leipzig. It's a great pathway. And you see now the younger players coming through and they're ready. They're ready to perform at this level because of that.
Next week, Michael Anderer.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Mike. Congratulations, Greg.
Thanks, Michael.
You mentioned earlier about one of the things that was important for you was to keep calm during the time with the team. I'm curious, when you're not with the team and when you prepare for the next 8 months, what's going to be an area of focus for you specifically?
Just continue to improve, right? How do we get the team better? We'll look at our deficits. We'll look at, what we can be doing better and address those things. And, I'll try to learn as much as I can, continue to develop personally, but also just thinking about how can the team be better? The World Cup is about small margins. It's about the little things. And so now it's about just focusing on details and getting that right.
We have 2 more questions for Greg, and we'll go back to Henry Bushnell.
Yeah. Hey, Greg. Thanks, Michael. Greg, if you could look back on the past few months, or I guess a few years since you've gotten the job on a personal level, there's still a decent amount of negativity and frustration among some fans. I think a lot of it left over from the last cycle. I'm assuming that doesn't affect you as a coach at all, but on a personal level, has that affected you at times at all?
I mean, that's this job. That's the thing about it. I think, this job is about winning. Americans want to see us win every game, and there's very little tolerance if you don't. And I know that's what I signed up for. So it's something that you just accept when you're in this role. And if you can't accept it, you're going to have a very difficult time. I know that the majority of the fans are supportive of the group, supportive of what we've been doing. They've seen the rise, they've seen the progress. We're in 15th in the world now, FIFA ranking. We dropped as low as 10th. So the team has made a ton of progress. And by the way, we're playing with the youngest team in the world. So, I mean, all these things are really positive. And for us, it's just about staying grounded and focusing on how to keep getting better.
Last question goes to Doug McIntyre.
Greg, thanks for taking another one here. Just to go back to, yeah.
Make it a good one. Ask about Carolina. No, I'm just kidding.
I might try to squeeze in 2, actually. I mean, just to go back to the prep. I mean, you talk about you in the 2 Nations League games, so I'm assuming 2 friendlies. What type of teams will you get to play? Maybe it's a South American team. To get to play a European team. And when you look at the tournament itself, and Ryan sort of alluded to this, do you think you have to play differently once you get to Qatar? And I know it'll depend on the draw, but and if so, do you have to prioritize different qualities in players for the main event as opposed to qualifying? Thanks again.
Well, I think, I was asked another question about what's the difference between the World Cup and World Cup qualifying, and they're different games. They're different games. The games are a lot more controlled. I think the atmospheres are a lot more controlled. The field conditions are standardized. So it's a lot more predictable in a sense, but the level's better. And I think our guys can adapt to that easier. I think that will be something where, our guys are used to playing with top players in the world, and this will be another opportunity for them to do so. So in terms of the preparation, specifically in June and then September, we're looking to play the confederations that we haven't played yet. And Africa, we haven't played African teams yet. We played only Qatar from Asia, and that's something we want to play against as well. And then potentially South America and Europe, and just continue to get experience with different forms of different styles of play, different ways to approach the game, and just see different opponents as we prepare for the World Cup.
As we mentioned, we are at JFK on our way to Doha. A reminder, the draw tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We will make Greg available approximately 2 hours following the conclusion of the draw. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you tomorrow.